Another day, another live service game bites the dust. Steel Hunters, the mech shooter that looked promising just 6 months ago, is shutting down permanently on August 8th. But here's the kicker, this isn't just another gaming failure, this is becoming an epidemic that's costing developers hundreds of millions of dollars and leaving players with nothing but digital graveyards. So today, I'm going to take a look at why Steel Hunters failed so spectacularly and why the live service model might be the most destructive trend in modern gaming. So, what exactly happened to Steel Hunters? Wargaming, the studio behind massive hits like World of Tanks, announced their newest project at the Game Awards in 2024, with all the fanfare you'd expect from a major studio. The trailer was spectacular, and the mechs looked incredible, and the promise of a fresh take on extraction shooters had some people genuinely excited. Now, fast forward to April 2025, and Steel Hunters launched into early access. The numbers honestly tell a pretty brutal story. The game peaked at just 4,479 concurrent players on Steam at launch, and that was the highest number it would ever reach. Within weeks, that number plummeted to under 1,000 players. And by the time Wargaming pulled the plug, we're talking about daily peaks of less than 100 people playing. Think about that for a second. A AAA studio with years of experience and substantial funding created a game that couldn't even maintain a 3-digit player count. The game currently sits at mixed reviews on Steam, which in the world of live service might as well be a death sentence. But here's what makes this story even more tragic. Steel Hunters didn't appear to be an extremely terrible game. I mean, people who tried it did describe decent mechanics, solid mech combat, and the foundation of what could have one day been something special. The problem wasn't necessarily quality, it was timing, market saturation, and impossible expectations of the live service model. Steel Hunters is just the latest casualty in what I kind of consider to be the live service apocalypse. Let's talk about numbers because they are absolutely staggering. We all know about Concord, Sony's hero shooter that cost an estimated $200 to $400 million to develop, lasted 4 days before Sony pulled the plug and refunded everyone. 14 days. That's not even long enough to properly review the game, let alone build a community. But the carnage doesn't just stop there. Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. Rocksteady's attempts to turn their beloved Batman Arkham formula into a live service shooter officially announced its end in December of 2024, after nearly a full year of disappointing seasons and dwindling player counts. The game is stated to receive its final update in January 2025. This is the same studio that gave us some of the greatest superhero games ever made, reduced to shutting down their live service experiment after Warner Bros. Reported it contributed to a $200 million loss. Granted, they are actually going to be doing an offline mode, so good for you guys, Rocksteady. Oh, and then there's Splitgate 2, which is currently in freefall. The Portal shooting sequel peaked at only 785 players. That's just 38% of what the original Splitgate achieved. Recent reports show the game has dropped below 1,000 concurrent players, forcing the studio to lay off employees while the co-founders stopped taking salaries. Hey, at least they did that. The community manager even admitted mistakes were made, but at this point, it might be too late. Oh, and let's not forget about Skull and Bones, Ubisoft's so-called Quad A pirate game that cost between $650 and $850 million over a decade of development. The game launched to just 850,000 players across all platforms, including free trial users, and has been hemorrhaging players ever since. When it finally came to Steam, it peaked at a pathetic 2,615 players and currently sits at around 185th on PlayStation's most played games list, right next to Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. So you know it's doing great, right? But why do live service games keep failing? The fundamental problem with live service games is that they're designed around a fantasy that really just doesn't match reality. Publishers see the success stories like Fortnite making billions, Valorant dominating esports, World of Warcraft still printing money after 20 years, and they think they can just copy that formula. But here's what they're missing: the live service market isn't growing, it's finite. Players have limited time and attention, and most of them are already committed to existing games. When you're asking someone to try your new hero shooter, you're not just competing with other new games, you're competing with the thousands of hours they've already invested in Overwatch, Valorant, or Apex Legends. The barrier to entry for live service games is insanely high now. You need to be not just good, but revolutionary. You need to offer something so compelling that players are willing to abandon their existing communities, their unlocked content, their friend groups, and their muscle memory to start all over again with your game. Steel Hunters made the classic mistake of being competent but not compelling. Splitgate 2 is suffering from controversy and the failure to innovate beyond its predecessor. Skull and Bones, kind of overpriced and overall underwhelming. Suicide Squad abandoned everything fans loved about Rocksteady's previous work. And in the single player world, competent can be enough, but people will play a decent single player game, finish it, and move on. But live service games, they don't get that luxury. They need to be someone's main game, possibly for years. I mean, and let's even dig into what these failures really cost. Concord alone reportedly cost more than $200 million. We've already talked about Skull and Bones being between 650 and 850 million over its extremely troubled development. And that's enough money to fund dozens of high quality single player games. The Witcher 3, one of the most beloved RPGs ever made, cost around $80 million, including marketing. You could make 10 Witcher 3s for the cost of Skull and Bones' failure. It's not even just about money. These failures are destroying studios and ending careers. Firewalk Studios, the team behind Concord, was completely shut down by Sony. Rocksteady is reportedly facing potential closure or after massive layoffs after Suicide Squad's failure. Splitgate 2's developers are already laying off staff and working without pay. These were talented developers who spent years of their lives working on projects that either lasted weeks or are limping towards inevitable shutdowns. And the human cost of this trend is staggering. How many innovative single player games aren't getting made because studios are chasing live service gold? How many creative risks aren't being taken because everything has to be designed around microtransactions and player retention metrics and BS like that? Here's a harsh truth that the industry needs to face: there's only room for a handful of successful live service games at any given time. Players don't want 20 different hero shooters or battle royales. They want one or two really good ones that they can master and play with their friends. The most successful live service games aren't just good, they became cultural phenomena. Fortnite isn't just a game, it's a social platform. Valorant isn't just a shooter, it's an esports ecosystem. World of Warcraft isn't just an MMO, it's a virtual world where people have formed lifelong friendships. These games succeeded because they offered something genuinely new and built communities around that innovation. Trying to replicate their success with incremental improvements is like trying to become the next Beatles by making slightly better pop music. The Steel Hunter shutdown, along with the failures of the other games mentioned here, should be a wake-up call for the entire industry. These weren't just indie studios gambling everything on their first game. We're talking about established companies with deep pockets and proven track records. If they can't make live service work outside very specific circumstances, what hope would smaller studios even have? The smart money isn't on the next live service phenomenon, it's on studios doing what they do best. Look at the biggest success stories in recent years. Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't chasing trends, it was Larian making the best possible version of what they're known for. Elden Ring wasn't trying to be Fortnite, it was From Software perfecting their formula. I want to make sure it's very clear here. I'm not saying live service games are inherently evil or that they'll completely disappear, but the industry needs to seriously recalibrate its expectations and approach. First, studios need to be honest about whether they actually have a live service idea worth pushing or if they're just chasing market trends, because not every game needs to be designed as a live service experience. Second, the bar for live service success desperately needs to be acknowledged. You're not just making a good game, you're trying to create the next major gaming platform. That requires innovation, not iteration. And finally, we need to celebrate and support the studios that focus on what they do best instead of chasing every trend. Some of the best games ever made were created by teams who stuck to their vision instead of following these market research trends. So, Steel Hunters, sadly, is dead. Suicide Squad is going to be ending. Splitgate 2 is just struggling to survive, and Skull and Bones continues to be a cautionary tale about live service excess. These failures might actually save gaming in the long run, but only if enough studios learn from these disasters and go back to making the kinds of games they're actually good at. We might see a renaissance of creativity and innovation. At this point, I think it's safe to say the live service bubble is bursting, and really, it's about time. Players deserve better than endless attempts to recreate Fortnite's success. They deserve original ideas, creative risks, and games made with passion instead of spreadsheets. Also, it is worth noting that Steel Hunters, in its kind of unique position, might not entirely fit into the Stop Killing Games movement, but it is important to note that this is another game that is dead. So I just want to remind everybody that if you don't want these games to keep dying, you want some game preservation, you actually want to make a change, and you're in the EU, please consider please consider signing the Stop Killing Games petition. The links in the description and in the pinned comment. Go ahead and read up on the initiative. It's not asking for anything crazy. If you haven't signed already and you are eligible to sign, I strongly encourage you to do so. This is about consumer protection, digital rights, and allowing our games to persist after they're no longer viable. But what do you think? Are you tired of seeing promising studios waste years chasing live service trends? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and peace out.